The camera panned across the enthusiastic studio audience, their cheers echoing off the walls of Ellen DeGeneres' set. Lights flashed, music blared, and Ellen took center stage with her usual grin, microphone in hand. "And now," she said, her voice bright and teasing, "our next guest is someone who's making international headlines, the youngest president in Africa, straight from Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré." The crowd clapped politely, some unsure of what to expect. Ibrahim walked onto the stage with calm composure, dressed in a neatly pressed traditional West African outfit, not overly flashy but unmistakably dignified. He greeted Ellen with a short nod and a measured handshake before taking his seat. Ellen raised an eyebrow and smiled in that cheeky, familiar way. "So, Ibrahim," she began, crossing one leg over the other, "you're the youngest head of state in Africa, huh? Do you even need to shave yet?" The audience laughed, not entirely sure whether they were supposed to. Ibrahim didn't flinch. He smiled gently and turned toward her, voice steady and rich with quiet confidence. "Yes, I do," he said. "And I also shave off corruption, injustice, and colonial influence while I'm at it." There was a beat of silence. Then a few claps. Then more. Ellen chuckled, but there was an edge of discomfort. "Well," she said, straightening a bit in her seat, "that's quite a mouthful." Ibrahim remained still, unwavering. "I've had to grow up quickly, Ellen. Leading a country that's been exploited for decades doesn't allow much time for jokes." The audience was no longer laughing, they were listening. Ellen blinked, her smile holding but clearly recalibrating. "All right then," she said, her voice a little quieter. "Let's get into it." The stage lights softened slightly as Ellen tried to steer the conversation into lighter waters, but Ibrahim's earlier comment had shifted the mood. The audience, sensing the weight of what was unfolding, leaned in more attentively. "So," Ellen began again, feigning curiosity with a half-smile, "Burkina Faso. I mean, no offense, but things seem a bit chaotic there, don't they? Coups, protests, instability. That's a lot for someone your age to handle." She smiled wider, clearly trying to turn the tone playful again. A few audience members chuckled awkwardly, not sure if the joke had landed or if it had just missed completely. Ibrahim, still composed, nodded slightly before speaking. "Yes, it was chaotic. But not by our own doing. That chaos was inherited, built by decades of foreign interference, extraction of our resources, and broken promises." Ellen blinked, caught off guard by the seriousness of his tone. He continued, "What I've inherited isn't just a title, it's a mission to restore dignity. We're not rebuilding for applause or optics. We're rebuilding because we must." There was a quiet hush in the room, the type that happens when the truth is heavier than expected. Someone in the audience started clapping slowly, then more joined in. It wasn't the explosive ovation Ellen was used to, it was thoughtful, deliberate. Ellen shifted in her chair, reaching for another angle. "Sure, I get that," she said with a forced laugh. "But come on, diplomacy, politics, power brokering, you're what, 35? Don't you ever feel like you're in over your head?" Ibrahim met her gaze, unfazed. "Do you feel in over your head asking questions about a country you barely understand?" he asked, not cruelly, but plainly. The audience gasped, not from offense, but from the raw precision of the response. A ripple of applause followed, more confident this time. Ellen opened her mouth, paused, and leaned back slightly. "Well," she said, eyes narrowing just a bit, "you've clearly got your answers ready." Ibrahim nodded. "I've had to answer for the future of millions since the day I put on this uniform. I don't get the luxury of improvising for laughs." This time, the applause came louder, stronger. It was clear, the audience wasn't just entertained anymore. They were paying attention. The tension in the room had grown thicker, though it wasn't hostile, it was charged, electric. Ellen adjusted the sleeve of her jacket, visibly trying to find her footing again. The playful banter had shifted into something else entirely, a conversation that demanded awareness, not wit. She leaned forward, resting her elbow on her knee as she tried one more time to bring the dialogue back under her control. "You know," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, "you talk like a revolutionary movie script. All these big words, sovereignty, liberation, resistance. Is that how you get attention? Stirring up drama." There was a faint, uneasy laugh from a few pockets in the audience, more out of habit than humor. Ibrahim sat still, but his eyes sharpened. He didn't raise his voice, didn't even blink faster. He simply turned toward her, his tone calm but cutting. No, he said. I get attention by defending my people while the world looks away. I don't need a script for that. I live it. He paused briefly, letting his words settle like thunder after a flash. You see drama, he continued, because that's what you're trained to look for: ratings, clicks, sound bites. But where I come from, we don't have the luxury of viewing struggle as entertainment. Our resistance isn't drama, it's survival. The studio was dead silent now. No one moved. Even Ellen, so often quick with a retort, looked momentarily stunned. She blinked, opened her mouth, and then closed it again. Ibrahim's voice softened, almost mournful. When you sit in a studio this polished, with lights this bright, it's easy to reduce real pain to clever lines. But I didn't come here to entertain. I came here to speak for those who are never given a mic. Someone in the audience stood and began clapping. Then another. And another. Within seconds, the studio erupted into a standing ovation, not for show, but because something true had just broken through the surface. Ellen remained seated, a little pale under the lights, her trademark smile flickering and uncertain. For once, the host was silent. Ibrahim didn't gloat. He simply nodded, folded his hands, and waited for the noise to settle, a man who had said what he needed to say, without a hint of performance. The applause took its time to fade. It wasn't just noise, it was the sound of minds changing. When it finally settled, the room felt different. Heavier, but clearer. Ellen straightened up in her chair, her fingers interlocked on her lap. She wasn't smiling now, at least not the way she had at the beginning of the interview. There was no snark left in her tone, only a quiet, uneasy respect. She let out a slow breath and met Ibrahim's eyes. Well, she said, voice softer now, I guess we all have something to learn from each other. Ibrahim gave a single nod. That's true. Dialogue should enlighten, not belittle. But too often, the global south is invited into conversations just to be laughed at, not listened to. That has to change. Ellen nodded, swallowing her instinct to joke. You're right, she said. Maybe I wasn't prepared for this kind of conversation today, but I'm glad it happened. Ibrahim leaned forward slightly. You don't have to be prepared to listen. Just willing. There was another brief silence, not awkward this time, but reflective. The audience watched as Ellen processed the moment, her usual sense of control clearly shaken, but not broken. She looked across at Ibrahim, a man younger than many of the world's leaders, yet carrying himself with the weight of centuries on his shoulders. You're not like any guest we've had before, she said with a half-smile that was finally sincere. You didn't come here to charm or entertain. I came here to remind people that we matter, Ibrahim replied. That my people are not statistics. We are not a backdrop for world politics. We are the story. The lights above seemed dimmer now, more intimate. Ellen reached across the space between their chairs and offered a handshake again, this time not as a host, but as a peer. Ibrahim took it. The camera zoomed out slowly, capturing the handshake, the audience rising to their feet once more. There were no slogans, no flashy sound bites to wrap it up. Just a moment, genuine, grounded, and hard-earned. And as the credits rolled, one thing was clear: Ellen had come in expecting to run the show. But Ibrahim Traoré had brought the truth, and truth doesn't play by anyone's script.